Hello, good day. I am Engineer Elton Ian, your instructor in ALX 202 or Instrumentation and Process Control. Now this time we're going to discuss about our Module 2, talking about measuring instrument or the sensors. Okay, so temperatures, first type of the measuring instrument or the sensors that we're going to discuss is the temperature sensor. So what is a temperature sensor? A temperature sensor is an electronic device that measures the temperature of its environment and converts the input data into electronic data to record or monitor or signal temperature changes. So example, um, temperature dito no nga sensor gibutang sa imong kalan and ganahan ka nga imong i-measure sang yang temperature no sa kainito dito sa yang kalayo. So imo siyang ang yang output ana no usually in voltage i-input nato sa ato ang processor, then the processor will give an output sa display no sa ato LCD para makita what is the actual measured no nga value nga temperature dito sa ato ang kalan. So that's only an example no, sa ato ang temperature sensor. So there could be a lot of types no, of temperature sensor. So number one is the thermocouples, and number two is the RTDs or the resistance temperature detectors. No? Kung naay siya ma-sense no nga temperature, then ang iyang resistance no mo change also. The same also sa thermistors, no? On the word therm or thermometer or thermal, and mistors is for resistors. So it also changes no the value of our resistance according to the value sa ato ang temperature no nga measure niya. Kaganiya ang ingon nga sa kalan no usually ang temperature sensors voltage no ang iyang ihatag. And sa kanisya sa ato ang thermistors, again ang supply niya voltage no ibutang siya sa ato ang in series no sa ato ang voltage sa supply, then mahimo na siyang divider na no ang ato ang thermistors. So whatever the resistance changes, mousubod ang voltage no nga mosulod sa imong supply sa imong processor. Then the processor will kung unsay mga volts nga ma-read niya no sa i-discuss ato sa EST 201 no sa kabayan sa Arduino board nga ang iyang A0 or the input no nga mga pins is ma-accept lang siya og voltage from 0 to 5 volts. So this is why no nga ang kaning thermistors gigamit lang ni siya no as a voltage divider no sa ato ang circuit. Then we have here the semiconductor based integrated circuits or the semiconductor based IC. No? So next is we're going to discuss what is thermocouple. A thermocouple is a sensor used to measure temperature. Okay, thermocouples consist of two wire legs made from different metals. No? Kaya kung mapareha siya og metal, example copper, and copper po na mong gikon, so wala siya reading no because the same man ang iyang input or signals nga iyang ipasulod. Then ang atong mangkong lantawon ana is the difference no voltage difference nga na-create niya. So wala siya difference because they are the same. So kinahanglan sa thermocouples dili yun pareha no, dapat different metals no ang ato ang usa copper, ang usa let us say stainless abi no. So basta as long as dili sila pareha no ang ilahang types sa metals no ay gamit. So the wire legs are welded together no ipatapot la duha at one end no creating a junction. So this junction is where the temperature is measured. When the junction experiences a change in temperature, a voltage is created. So na makreate ang voltage. And usually ang voltage, no, mo siya gamiton nato as our input, no, sa ato ang processor or sa ato ang processing device. So these are the sample, no, sa ato ang thermocouples. So wire type E and wire type B, no? Then we have here the heat, no, the junction heat weld na sa duha. Then we have here the what you call the multimeter, no, so whatever the difference, iyan ang i-display doon, no, ang difference. So these are the sample, no, nga actual, no, nga thermocouple. And this one, no, dito na natin i-connect sa ato ang Arduino, no, nga processor or microcontrollers. Then we have here the another type of the temperature sensor is the RTDs, are the resistance temperature detectors, no? Resistance temperature detectors, also known as a resistance thermometer or RTD, is an electronic device used to determine the temperature by measuring the resistance of an electrical wire. So this wire is referred to as a temperature sensor. Yes. Okay, if you want to measure temperature with high accuracy, an RTD is the ideal solution. So as it has good linear characteristic over a wide range of temperatures. So example ay niya, no? Muna siya ang yung example. So we have here the platinum wire, no? I-won na siya sa ato ang element, no? Ceramic bobbin, no? This is a ceramic bobbin, and we have the leads. So ang other end sa ato ang wire is sa pikas nga terminal, sa pikas nga lead. And actually, no, muna siya ang yang no form, no, muna siya other type po sa yang kon is this one, no, na tay resistance nga ma-create. But the actual, no, muna siya ang yang sa inside, no, inside ano yung structure is this one. Okay, anyway, no, dili na siya makita nato kay sa industry na siya nato makakuan. Only nga natay gitawag nga kuan ni field trip, so pwede siya makita, no, sa ato ang industrial plant. Then the next one is the thermistor. Okay, so this is the common na ginagamit sa electronics. So a thermistor is a thermally sensitive resistor that exhibit a continuous small incremental change in resistance correlated to temperature variations. Okay, so usually sa power supply, no, makakonect na siya doon sa ato ang transformer and sa heatsink, no, sa ato ang regulators. So once nga ma-sense niya ang, no, kung example overload na siya, no, or ang ato ang power supply dako na kay ang load nga iyang supply, so the more current nyo pa sa ato ang inductors, the more po siya nga muinit, no? And also sa ato ang regulators nga nakabutang sa heatsink, iyan ang sense, no, ang temperature around in that area. And once nga taas na kaya ang iyang temperature, biyan na sa iyang set point or sa limit niya nga nakaset, so automatic i-trip off niya niya, iyang palungon ang ato ang power supply. Maybe ang relay, no, the purpose of the relay is to cut off or to trip off the flow of current sa tuang system sa power supply. So I'm gonna share one of the purpose sa thermistor. Okay, most of the thermistors have a negative temperature coefficient or the NTC, which means that their resistance decreases with an increase in the temperatures. When we say negative, mo increase yung temperature, no, nga gi-measure mo decrease, no, ang iyang resistance. But there are a few thermistors that have a positive temperature coefficient or the PTC. And the resistance increases also when the temperature is rise, no, or increases. So this is called PTC or positive temperature coefficient. But the usual thermistor ginagamit sa market o sa electronics is the NTC type, okay, or the negative temperature coefficient thermistor. Okay, then the next type of the temperature sensor is the semiconductor based integrated circuits. Okay, a semiconductor based temperature sensors works with dual integrated circuits, IC. They contain two similar diodes with temperature sensitive voltage and a current characteristic to measure the temperature changes effectively. However, they give a linear output but are less accurate at 1 degree Celsius to 5 degrees Celsius. So these are the tolerance, no? Yang so dili kay siya maka kung ano kung na changes lang from 1 degrees to 5 degrees Celsius. They also exhibit the slowest responsiveness, no? From 5 seconds to 60 seconds across the narrowest temperature range. So negative 70 degrees Celsius to 150 degrees Celsius. Ang yang kaya niya nga i-measure, no, sa ato ang semiconductor based integrated circuits. So sample ay niya is this one, no? Is a Maxim integrated DS18B20U, no? Plus TNR. So this is a digital temperature sensor from negative 55 to positive 25 degrees Celsius. Yung tolerance is 0.5 degrees Celsius, no? So grabe kayo siya ka accurate, no, ang iyang readings sa tuwang temperature. So this is, I think this is the sensing metal, no, sa tuwang temperature. Then the next type of the sensor is kanang itawag nato pressure sensor. So pressure sensor is defined as the applied force by a liquid or gas on a surface, and it is usually measured in units of force per unit of surface area. So usually that is bar or Pascal, no? Common units are Pascal. Pascal is, I think, pounds per. I'm not so sure sa meaning sa Pascal. And psi or pounds per square inch. Okay, so these are the common, no, units used pressure. Okay, definition of a pressure sensor. Okay, pressure sensor is an instrument consisting of a pressure sensitive element to determine the actual pressure applied to the sensor using different working principles, no? And some components to convert this information into an output signal. So again, the output signal is usually in voltage, no? Form. Ito ang okay, bar pressure unit. No? Bar is a widely used metric unit of measurement for pressure, and 1 bar equals precisely to 100,000 pascals. Okay, even though bar is not in SI unit, it has been adopted as one of the most popular pressure units, particularly in European countries, where most pressure measurement instruments are specified with pressure range in bar. Okay, so then we have here types of pressure sensor. First type of a pressure sensor is the strain gauge based pressure sensors. Also use a pressure sensitive element where metal strain gauge are glued on, or thin film gauge are applied on by sputtering. So this measuring element can either be a diaphragm or for metal foil gauge. Measuring bodies in can type can also be used. The big advantages of this monolithic can type design are an improved rigidity and the capability to measure highest pressure of up to 15,000 bar. Okay, the sample is this one. This is a sample image sa tuwang strain gauge based pressure sensor. Next is the capacitive pressure sensors. So capacitive pressure sensors use a pressure cavity and diaphragm to produce a variable capacitor. So you see variable capacitors, that is the capacitor changes its values according to the pressure, no, ayang ma sense. So the diaphragm is deformed when pressure is applied and capacitance decreases accordingly. So this change in capacity can be measured electrically and is then set in relation to the applied pressure. These sensors are limited to low pressures of roughly 40 bar. So these are the samples, no, sa tuwang capacitive pressure sensor. So diri mo agi ang pressure, no, and also the other pressure. So the more pressure nga ma-create inside, no, sa atong diaphragm, then ang capacitance niya is mo decrease or mo this one, no, the plate mo kanin siya, no, mo almost na siya connect, no, sa ato ang dielectric, and this one also, no, so sa atong diaphragm. Then the more pressure, so kanin siya mo go also sa almost, no, connect sa ato ang diaphragm. So that is why the more pressure, the less, no, the capacitance value nga iya mag-create. So this is all called capacitive pressure sensor. Okay, next is the piezo resistive pressure sensor. So consists of a diaphragm, mostly made of silicone with integrated strain gauge, no, to detect strain as a result of applied pressure. So these strain gauges are typically configured in a Wheatstone bridge circuit to reduce the sensitivity and increase the output. Sa engineering, no, na discuss niya na to, no, sa ang itawag ng Wheatstone bridge, no. So it's a type of circuits na naka-bridge type, no, ang yang connection. So due to the material being used, the pressure limitation is at around 1,000 bar. So kaya niya, no, ang dako-dako nga pressure. Then this is the, no, the sample image, no, sa ato ang piezo. We have here the pressure 1 and the pressure 2. Then we have the resistor, no, then silicone diaphragm and the contact. So whatever the pressure, no, yung gikuan, then naman sa mga electrical, no, equivalents nga ma-create together with the sa ato ang structures, no, sa ato ang contacts and resistors, and together with the silicone diaphragm. Okay, so imagine lang sa tanin, no, because you cannot actually see, no, the real sensors, because most of these sensors are found, no, at the industry. Okay, level sensor. The type next sensors, no, that we're going to discuss is the level sensor. So a level sensor is a device that is designed to monitor, maintain, and measure liquid and sometimes solid levels. So once the liquid level is detected, the sensor converts the perceived data into an electric signal. Level sensors are used primarily in the manufacturing and automotive industries, but they can be found in many household appliances as well, such as ice makers and refrigerators. Okay, so there are two main classifications of level sensors. The first is the point level sensors and continuous level sensors. So, okay, point level sensors are designed to indicate whether a liquid has reached a specific point in a container, and continuous, no, level sensors, on the other hand, are used to render precise liquid level measurements. Level sensors can be divided further into invasive and non-contact sensors. We see invasive sensors make direct contact with the substance they are measuring, while non-contact sensors use sound or microwaves. So these are the samples, no, sa ato ang level sensors. Example, tank, no, sa water tank. And if we want to sense the level of the water, so these are the sensors na gagamit nato. And we have the sensor tip, and we have here the infrared light, Okay, so the liquid media, this one, and the tank ball, no? This one. So if maabot na ang water di sa yang part, no? Mo stop na siguro na to ang ato ang water pump. Then kung ma-empty na po ng ato ang almost empty na ato ang tank, then mo on na po ng ato ang water pump. So just like that ang yang concept, no, sa ato ang level sensors. Then we have another sensor is what we call the proximity sensor. So a proximity sensor is a sensor able to detect the presence of nearby objects without any physical contact. Okay, so pag muagi ka, sorry na mga example IR or PIR, the motion sensor, pwede siya. Okay, let's discuss what is proximity sensor. So, proximity sensor often emits an electromagnetic field or a beam of electromagnetic radiation, usually infrared, for instance, and looks for changes in the field or return signal. The object being sensed is often referred to as the proximity sensor's target. So, different proximity sensor targets demand different sensors. For example, a capacitive proximity sensor or photoelectric sensor might be suitable for a plastic target. So, ang capacitive sensor, no, para na siya sa plastic target, no. But of course, no, mo-detect rin siya og metal ang ato ang capacitive sensor. But duwa ni ang i-detect, no, sa metal and plastic. An inductive proximity sensors always requires a metal target. Kinahanglan metal ano siya. Kung ma-plastic, dili niya i-detect. Okay, so pwede siya gamiton sa industry, no, tong separation sa tuwang between the metal and the plastic. So type of proximity sensor. So we have here 5 types: the inductive proximity sensor, and we have the optical proximity sensor, and we have the capacitive proximity sensor. Number 4, magnetic proximity sensor, and the last one is the ultrasonic proximity sensor. So inductive proximity sensor are useful to detect the metallic object which is present next to their active side. So this sensor operate under the electrical principle of inductance, where a fluctuating current induces an electromagnetic electromotive force or EMF in a target object. Number 2 is the optical proximity sensor. A complete optical proximity sensor includes a light source and a sensor that detects the light. These sensors detect objects directly in front of them by detecting the sensors on transmitted light reflected back from an object surface. So na siya light light source, napod siya tawag na to og sensor, no. So kung wala siya light ng box sa sensor, so which means wala object na ni na detect. Pag na object nga moagi in front sa sensor, so ang light niya mo banda and mo example ang kani atong mouse, no, optical mouse. Nga kung imo ni siyang ipalayo sa imong mousepad, dili siya mo move. But kung ang imong optical mouse, no, ibutang nimo sa mousepad, so pag move nimo sa cursor, mo move na siya, no? Or pag move nimo sa mouse, ang cursor mo move na siya. Okay, so then number 3 is the capacitive proximity sensor. Can detect both metallic and non-metallic targets in powder. Okay, granulate, liquid, and solid form. So the capacitive proximity sensor use the variance in the capacitance of the sensor to conclude that an object has been detected. Okay. Then magnetic proximity sensor, based on the mechanical principle, this sensor only detects the magnetic field or the permanent magnet. This sense the presence of a magnetic object commonly referred to as the target. So the target, characterized by its magnetic field, triggers the switching processes process when it enters the detection range of the sensor. So, muna siya ginagamit sa ito ang speedometer, no? Nga, sa ito speedometer, ito sa ito ang ligid, no? Sa ito ang salakyan, no? Na ano siya, mga magnet. Then, at ba sa ito ang example, no? Sa hub, no? Or sa yanta, no? Sa itong salakyan, ibutang ni siya ang mga magnet, no? Then, at bang anang magnet is this one, no? The magnetic proximity sensor. So, pag tuyok no? So, ma-measure niya ang imong speed or the RPM, no? Or the revolution per minute sa imong speed, no? Sa imong rotation, sa imong ligid, no? So, that is called the RPM, revolution per minute. Then, number 5 is the ultrasonic proximity sensor. So, emit an ultrasonic pulse which is reflected by objects in its path, and the reflected wave enters the sonic cone. This one. Okay. They employ sound waves to detect objects, so color and transparency do not affect them, though extreme textures might. Okay, so sag na pa rin nakaabong ra nga plastic, no? Or glass. So, ang yang sound wave, no? Wala po sa Japan na siya. Pero kung kung siguro, no? Mga baga na kayong mga wall, so dili na siya kay kalapos, no? Ang yang sound wave. So, that is the proximity sensor. So, that is the one of the most lang, no? Commonly used nga sensors, no? Sa industry nga ginagamit, no? Sa tuwang or one of the instrument, no? Or the transmitter, no? Sa tuwang industry nga ginagamit para nga ma-detect, no? During sa pag-process sa mga products, ma-detect kung mo pasar ba siya sa quality control or dili ba siya mo pasar sa quality control. Kaya pwede siya mo count, no? Sa number of product, no? Nga na-create para nga instead ang human ang mo evaluate, so ang sensor na ang mo automatic count kung pila ang na produce, no? Nga product sa to ang industry or manufacturing industry. So that's all. Thank you, and this is your instructor in ALX 202, Engineer Elton Ian M. Ho. And good luck for our quiz number 2 for this module 2.